Welcome to Talk Tonic Los Angeles. I'm your host, Dino, and this is the ReedWeed Law edition with resident criminal defense attorney Michael Reed of Cannabis Legal Help. During the podcast, we'll be discussing various news stories circling the cannabis industry. The information you hear today during the show is in no way meant to serve as any legal advice. Its sole purpose is to bring some light to the new happenings that both negatively and positively affect the cannabis industry at large. And with that out of the way, welcome Michael Reed of Cannabis Legal Help. What's up, man?
Oh, usual. Enjoying my Sunday.
Yeah, we got to just jump into this because during this week, and I'm sure you obviously heard about this, the president of the United States decided to take one modest step forward in kind of shifting the zeitgeist of the way cannabis should be maybe looked at and treated moving forward. And so with that, the stage is yours, my friend.
Number one topic I wanted to talk about, of course, because the president of the United States came out and said he wants to pardon a bunch of people who were convicted or arrested for possession of cannabis. So fantastic. But as you stated, it is somewhat modest. Well, it's a big deal, but in effect, as far as how it affects us, citizens of the United States, it is modest. But it is a big deal that the president of the United States came out. And just to remind everybody, essentially, Biden came out this week, President Biden, and he said specifically two things. He said a lot of things, but specifically two things that are most important for this topic is he wants to pardon all people who have been convicted or arrested of federal possession of cannabis or marijuana. Choose the word you prefer.
I was going to ask, federal possession, is that a misdemeanor, or what are those? Is that considered a misdemeanor, or what is that?
That's a good question, actually. From what I saw, there wasn't specificity on either, but I believe, I don't want to quote this because it's been a while since I looked at these federal laws, but I want to say most of them are felonies in the first place.
Okay.
Because there is no legality for cannabis according to the federal government. Mm-hmm. We'll get into the schedule in a moment, but it is a Schedule 1 drug, meaning no medical use, highly dangerous, highly addictive, highly just dangerous for society. But I'm sure there's some misdemeanors in there. But the point is that I don't think he made a distinction between the two. So when it comes to possession, and I don't think he indicated quantity, as far as I understand. More than an ounce, less than an ounce. Those are things that we used to be used to hearing when it came to the misdemeanor felony status of cannabis in California. More than an ounce in the past was felony, less than anyway. So going back, I don't think he gave a distinction for felony or misdemeanor, but this is only for federal convictions or arrests of possession. Now, there's lots of things related to cannabis that he didn't talk about. He didn't talk about sales, distribution. He didn't talk about cultivation. He didn't talk about illegal transportation across state borders. Mm-hmm. There's lots of things he did not talk about, and those don't apply. So those convictions, those arrests, they stay on the books federally.
Right.
But let me get into what he said. So he said, pardon all federal possession. Okay, so that's what we already talked about. That's one. And arrests and convictions. But the second thing I think is more important and actually makes this a bigger deal. He ordered the Secretary of Human Health and the United States Attorney General, and that's Mr. Garland, the one who was supposed to be on the Supreme Court, but that was denied a hearing by Mr. McConnell, Republican leader. And then McConnell turned around when Republicans with Trump had presidency and kind of forgot everything that he did in an election year and brought in the last Supreme Court justice. I forgot her name. Not worthy.
Yes.
But moving on, I'm sure she's worth. She's got, she's done some great things, but she's a little mixed up in the head, in my opinion, of her personal beliefs. But anyway, so that's a big deal. He is essentially directing the United States Attorney General and the Department of U.S. Human Health, to essentially reschedule marijuana.
Yeah, I did. I saw something about that. Basically, it's Biden's health secretary has already taken to FDA about marijuana scheduling review, which will move quickly. I pulled up a story real quick because I knew that would probably come up. U.S. Health and Human Services Secretary Xavier Becerra said in Tampa Friday that he intends for his agency to move as quickly as they can to comply with President Biden's directive to review the decades-old policy of listing marijuana as a Schedule One drug. Now,
It's beautiful.
okay, what are the optics behind that language right there?
Well, essentially, we're seeing action right away. There was no limit that Biden put on this, meaning you have to do this now, Health and Human Secretary, you have to do this in 5 months. So there was, at first thought was, well, when is this really going to happen? Well, you just answered it. They are jumping on it right away. So it seems like the wheels are turning, they're spinning, and the tables may be turning as far as this being a Schedule One drug. And I think that's a perfect segue into these schedules, because the schedules can be a little confusing, and I think I should define that a little bit.
Yeah, that would be great. And then also, um, earlier you were when you mentioned the Scheduled One label that it has, I wanted to ask you if you recall around what decade that was enacted. Like when did they actually, give it that label?
Controlled Substance Act of 1970. I think it was finally put in place in 71 when they figured everything out. But it came from the Controlled Substance Act of 1970, and that specifically created the schedules. Before that, they had something else. I can't remember the name of it, but it wasn't Schedule 1, 2, 3 like that. It was something different to put various different drugs, legal or illegal, in categories. But the Controlled Substance Act of 1970, that is what officially put cannabis as a Schedule One drug. So and improperly, because it put cannabis as a Schedule One drug with zero scientific evidence to back it up that it should be a Schedule One drug. And just to remind you, as I stated earlier, Schedule One is defined as zero medical benefit, highly dangerous to society, highly addictive.
Wow.
Okay, and let's just talk about.
And that's in bed also with cocaine.
No.
No. What?
No. See, that's the funniest part about this.
You're kidding me.
Cocaine is a Schedule 2 drug.
What? How
yes.
does that even?
Yes. Oh, how about this? Fentanyl is a Schedule 2 drug.
Wow. This is what's killing people right now. One of the number one killers of people every day. Yeah.
Now, we do use fentanyl in medicine. That is true. It is highly, highly potent painkiller.
Right.
But it is also severely addictive, and microscopic amounts will make you OD. So, and this is a very big problem in this country right now. This stuff's coming in from China, and most of it is coming in from China, and it's just, you can't even touch it. So anyway, so let's talk about the schedule. So as I said, no medical use, highly addictive, highly dangerous, society, Schedule 1. Let's see who marijuana partners with in that Schedule 1. They are partnered with LSD. They are partnered with heroin. They are partnered with peyote. Wow. They are partnered with psilocybin mushrooms. So that is 3 hallucinogens I just mentioned, which should be in a whole category of themselves. And then we throw in heroin, and you take a heroin user and a cannabis user, there is no comparison.
No.
Sorry.
And you said that they put marijuana in there with no science behind it. Now, when they put all those other substances in there along with cannabis, did they also put them in there with no science? Do you know?
That I can't tell you for certain, so I'm not sure.
Okay.
But I will say that I believe there had to be some studies or statistics showing, heroin addicts on the street, that kind of stuff. This is the 70s, after the 60s, flower power movement, People are experimenting a lot with drugs. So, mainstream square society
Right.
at the time, to use an old 70s, 60s term, square.
But
Um,
those squares right there, their wives, the husbands were out, with their work meetings, having cocktails while the wives were popping quaaludes, trying to
oh, yeah.
get themselves to feel better about their lives because their husbands were cheating on them. But that's a whole nother story for another day. And
Hey, quaaludes were legal, man. They were prescribed. It's all good. Anyway, so yes, right on. So those are some of the friends who sit next to cannabis on Schedule 1. Schedule 2, as I mentioned, let me just say what the definition is, the gist of it. Low or moderate potential for abuse or addiction in society. So moderate
Okay.
possibility of addiction or abuse, but less dangerous. Excuse me. I was reading 3. Number 2 is high potential for abuse or addiction. This is why cocaine is part of it. High potential for abuse or addiction, but lower than Schedule 1, and some medical use. So if we talk about cocaine, lidocaine that you get from the dentist to numb your teeth comes from cocaine.
Interesting.
Solar cane that you spray on your sunburn that you buy at CVS comes a derivative of cocaine. So essentially anything with an "ane" in the end of it that is sort of medical derived is a derivative of cocaine. It is all over the place in our life. But what else is part of Schedule 2? Methamphetamine, which is horrible for us.
Yeah, that should be on 1, if anything, because that's one of the most addictive drugs that is out there, actually. So,
but there is some medical use. Ever heard of Adderall? Have you ever heard of
the kids love Adderall, man. I tell you that.
They love that stuff. It's a form of an amphetamine, which is where methamphetamine comes from.
Right.
So speeds you up, and what was that one? Ritalin.
Ritalin,
that's an old one.
They used to give it to kids back in the 80s when they were quote unquote diagnosed with ADHD, which I was. And my mother, for 1 week, tried to put me on Ritalin because that's what the doctor suggested. And she said it turned me into a zombie. So she took me off of it right away. And but anyway, I figured myself
You're so focused that you don't even hear the bird right next to you. I mean, it's anyway. But so meth, cocaine, fentanyl are examples of Schedule 2. Schedule 3, that is the low or moderate danger to society for abuse or addiction. Less dangerous than Schedule 2. Steroids is in this category. Testosterone, ketamine is in this category.
Ketamine, okay.
Which I found weird.
Yes, that is a little odd.
Because I've never touched ketamine, but I thought it was kind of like a hallucinogen, I thought.
Yeah, I believe so too. Because I know that Joe Rogan talks about it a lot with a lot of his guests. Ketamine comes up quite a bit when they talk about doing any kind of hallucinogenics. So I believe so. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it is within the realm of possibility.
I think it's a horse tranquilizer. That's about what I know about it.
Yeah, okay.
But like a lot of drugs, you can use them for different things. So anyway, continuing on, Schedule 4, low potential for abuse or addiction, medical benefits, Xanax and Valium are examples on this. Schedule 5, even lower potential than Schedule 4 for abuse or addiction, and medical benefits. And this is stuff we use over the counter a lot of the time. Cough medication, things that have codeine in it, but there's limited quantities. So what I saw was 100 milligrams for a 200 milliliter bottle or something is the limit of codeine. So cough suppressants in general, but the one thing that is here related to cannabis actually that's exciting is a Epidiolex.
Oh,
PDLX is our very first CBD-based drug with actual controlled studies, medical studies that indicated it works to help with certain types of seizures in children.
interesting.
Um, so PDLX, with the approval of the FDA, was made a Schedule 5 drug.
Wow.
And of course, the 2018 Farm Bill that legalized hemp
Mm,
um, was helped lead the way for that. But anyway, so that is essentially the whole scheduling differences, what they are going to be analyzing and hopefully changing with regard to cannabis. I think cannabis should probably be on the line of maybe Schedule 3 or below, meaning 3, 4, 5. I
yeah,
wouldn't put it as a 2. It's not a
right.
friend with cocaine
No,
or
it's not.
fentanyl.
It's not.
Um, but could I compare it to maybe testosterone and steroids? I don't know if I compare it to ketamine, but testosterone and steroids, sure. But I wouldn't say
Yeah.
it's performance improving.
Well, I
Um,
will tell you, and I mentioned this before to you previously and on the old shows, was that a lot of current athletes and then retired athletes are actually coming out vocalizing their use of cannabis for use in recovery
recovery.
instead of using taking high doses of ibuprofen or any of those other types of drugs that affect their liver and other, has other negative side effects for long-term use. And a lot of these athletes over the years do develop some complications because of those drugs. So now
Yeah.
they're very much open about being advocates to use this as part of their recovery treatments.
Yeah. Yeah. No, but like you said recovery. So they're doing that after playing,
Not
after
all of them.
competing.
Not all of them.
Oh, even before?
Some of them are
God,
actually playing
not me.
while they have, but these guys that are playing high are people that have had years of experience of using cannabis. So they already know their bodies well enough to know if I
Hmm.
smoke X amount, I can't perform to my highest ability. If I smoke this amount, I can play, very well and also alleviate some of the pain that I receive throughout the duration of the game. So there is a balance. Of course, this is something that individually has to be looked at, and it's in no way, again, anything for people to try. But this is just anecdotal stories that I have heard through, athletes on ESPN or online through other podcasts. So
Yeah, I just, it's actually a perfect example that the side effects of cannabis are very different for people
mm-hmm.
because nowhere in my right mind would I know based on my experience that I could perform well in sports
Yeah,
with any amount in
right.
my system, active in my system at that point. That's me. That's my body.
Yeah.
No matter what I do on that court or that field or whatever in that game, it's not going to be that great compared to without for me. um, anyway, so just to finish up a little bit about Biden's announcement, because there's a couple other things that I think are important for people to understand.
Sure.
So the majority of so you get hit for possession because that's all Biden talked about, possession charge, a crime. 99.9% of the time, I'm just going to give the federal government 0.1 here. 99.9% of the time, that is a state law that you're being charged, arrested, and potentially convicted for.
I
And we're
see.
just talking about possession of cannabis. The president of the United States has zero power to pardon state laws that you've been
Oh,
convicted or
uh-huh.
arrested on. So the majority of the people are affected by state laws. So the majority of the people of this country will not be affected unless they also happen to have a federal law of possession of cannabis. Then that one will be erased. But their state law may not be erased depending on what their states have done. Here in California, we're cool.
Yeah.
When we passed Prop 64, we included not just an expungement, because expungement is a term of art in the law. Expungement doesn't necessarily mean that it's erased, eliminated, can't be seen anymore. Sealed is really the better term, and destroyed would be an even better one. But they use the improper term expungement. That's fine, because if you read the fine print of the black letter rule of the law, it specifically says they will destroy any prior conviction, any record of an arrest, gone from existence. So that is farther than expungement that California has actually done. It's seal and destroy, so it essentially doesn't exist anymore. But the federal government probably will still have a little bit of information about it, because the FBI is the FBI. So anyway, state possession charges, unless your state has done it themselves, those are still intact. California, we did it. A lot of the legal states have recreational cannabis have done it, but there's only 17 of those. So out of 50, there's a lot that haven't done it.
Yeah, North Carolina just their governor just put out a statement saying that he wants lawyers to review pardoning options in their state, saying it's time to end the stigma. So I thought that was very bold, and I hope other governors in other states follow suit. Of course, that's a tall task to ask for when there's a lot of other people that would have something to say about that, and in those Senate seats, or whatever. So who knows?
I actually got some information about that for you in a moment, but let me finish about governors around the country. But let me just speed through this really quickly. Other people not affected, non-citizens. So specifically, Biden stated, essentially the limitation in this part is that if you're a non-citizen and you are in the country illegally. Okay. So if you're a non-citizen and you're here on a work visa or a student visa or vacation visa, or just simply you're within the vacation limitations of being here, whatever, as long as you're here legally, this potentially could apply to you. But at the same time, if you're here as a foreign citizen and you get arrested for cannabis, they could deport you on the spot. So you might already be gone, or you're in the process, and hey, you're going to be out of the process now.
Just depends on what state you're in, I would imagine.
Well, federal government controls the immigration. So yes,
that's true.
States do have a little bit of say. But when it comes to deportation, that's all federal guidelines. That's all federal court. So this is a problem. If you, for example, you're brought here as a baby, it's not your choice. You're brought here as a 2-year-old, 5-year-old, not your choice. 10-year-old, still not your choice. And you lived your entire life here. You are an American. You act like an American. You go to Starbucks. You went to public school, maybe, or maybe you got lucky and went to private school. Not necessarily lucky. It depends on the private school. Anyway,
that's right.
So the point is, you could have lived your whole life here. You act and you feel like an American, but because of something that happened when you were a baby, you get possession of cannabis, and you cannot get that federally sealed or destroyed or expunged, whatever term you want to use, because of your parents brought you and your legal status. So that is another example. This applies to only convictions federally. I already mentioned that, not the state. It only applies to past convictions, not future convictions or arrests. So that is a little bit of a weird spin. But if they're going to be rescheduling, the laws will be changing. But tomorrow, you might get screwed.
It's interesting. I wonder this rescheduling, or the potential to reschedule. I know I would just mention that they're looking to move fast in this, but there's still a lot of tape to get through. Even though the president wants things to move fast, doesn't mean it's going to happen. So yeah, I just, in your mind, is it something that you see potentially taking months, or even to the latter part of next year, or even a couple years to 3 years? Or what do you think that's gonna look like?
I'm guessing, because they seem to be moving on it sort of quickly, I'm guessing it will be months until we see the next action happen, maybe changing the scheduling. But I also think it will be years to handle the ripple effect of the things not thought about, and now, it affects this, we have to change that.
I see.
So it's going to take years to fix everything and get everything in line with our new approach to cannabis. But hopefully, I believe the process is going to continue very,
Now,
very soon.
is going through the FDA and these other channels a kind of a bilateral way of legalizing it in a way, instead of having to go through the other channels, like, having, the state, the Senate and Congress and all that other stuff that we've been trying to do for years? Is that kind of like a bilateral way of going around legalizing it?
So essentially, why cannabis is placed where it is because of the Controlled Substance Act. And the Controlled Substance Act gave the federal government the ability to decide what will be the scheduling. So all they have to do is decide the scheduling is different, and that will create a ripple effect across the law.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a little more to it than that, but essentially that will be the domino that starts to make everything else fall.
Okay.
Last couple things is it doesn't apply to, like I said, not to conspiracy, not to sales, not to cultivation, bringing it across state lines, trafficking. None of that stuff does this a federal pardon apply to, even if these are federal crimes on your record. So, for example, if you're charged with possession federally in the past of possession of cocaine and possession of cannabis, this doesn't apply to you either, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yep. So there's still lots of problems. This is going to help thousands, but it's not going to touch millions. So that's we got a lot to do.
Something is something, and it's the right step, I guess you can say, and the larger movement of decriminalizing this for the most part benevolent herb. So
yeah. So going what I was saying earlier, how you mentioned North Carolina, I think's governor. I did kind of look into what other governors and other politicians are saying across the country, and it was a little interesting, but also at the same time predictable. So we start off in Texas with good old Governor Abbott, who is, it's an election year for him. He's looking to maintain his power in Texas and remain governor. But he specifically came out right away and said, not in Texas. We are not going to pardon anybody, and we are not going to legalize. So not in Texas, even though Texas is slowly moving towards, I'm going to say this gently, slowly moving towards becoming a better California. Don't hit me. It's slowly moving towards that. It's not there yet, but a lot of Californians are there.
Do they have medicinal? Do they have medicinal use?
They have, yes. But it is so strict. It's out of this world.
Okay.
Yes, but it's not for THC. It's for CBD.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can sort of say they do, but at the same time, not really.
Yeah.
Anyway, Beto O'Rourke, who is running for governor in Texas against Mr. Abbott, he's not only does he say he wants to do exactly what Biden did, but he wants to go further, and he wants to legalize cannabis in Texas, fully recreationally and medically. So if that's what you want and you're in Texas and Beto O'Rourke sounds like your guy, then you should get out and vote for him.
Yeah.
Pennsylvania came out, said within an hour of Biden's speech, the governor, Democratic governor of Pennsylvania, Tom Wolf, he came out and said, we're doing the same thing. So Pennsylvania is going to have something similar to what for a state level that Biden did at a federal level. Massachusetts governor is not running for re-election. So there is a Democratic candidate and a Republican candidate. And predictably, the Democratic candidate says, we will do what Biden did. Absolutely. Keep in mind, Massachusetts is already a legal state.
Right.
But the Republican governor, Jeff Dello, he's not going to do it. So that gives you a little bit of a difference of those candidates. Governor of Michigan, this is Gretchen Whitmer. She was the one who there was a plot to assassinate her during COVID, and this was the state where you saw all those long rifles march into the state capitol.
Yeah, yes. I was trying to forget about those things. Yes. All right, thank you. Yeah.
Proud to be an American on those days, right? We look like morons.
Oh yeah.
So anyway, thank goodness that in that storming of that state's capital, that they didn't beat the crap out of the cops and all of that, and
Yep.
and
Oh, just
everybody.
real quickly,
Yeah.
we got about 8 minutes, so just
Oh,
wanted.
okay. I'll speed up. Sorry, I was on a
No
tangent
worries.
as always.
No worries.
So anyway, she is voiced support for Biden, and she specifically says we did this in 2020. And Governor of Nevada, Democratic Steve Sisolak, praised Biden, and he said we've already done this and we've legalized it all. Governor of Colorado praised Biden, and he said we already did this. Thanks for coming out.
Right.
Arkansas, we talked about them, how they're going to get recreational on their ballot this November. But they're not happy about it because it was the people who decided that.
Yeah.
The legislators are not happy. Republican governor predictably said, nope, we will not surrender in the fight to save lives from the drug abuse war. Whatever, paraphrasing a little bit, but yeah. So that's to name just a few. And I can finish us off with just about 5 minutes, just reminding all of us, and this is a good segment, I could call it Stay Legal. So it's just a reminder when it comes to cannabis, stay legal. Don't end up with cuffs. Don't end up with a record. Don't end up behind bars. Don't end up in the back of that patrol car. So essentially, transportation. Think of cannabis like alcohol. Open beverage container and alcohol must be in the trunk of your car. You go to dinner, have a nice dinner with your partner, your lady, your guy, and you didn't finish that bottle of wine. You want that cork to take it home because you paid for it. Put it in the trunk because it's an open beverage container. That cork has been popped. Cannabis, you buy it from the store. It's in the sealed jar with a little plastic on the top. You haven't pierced that plastic. That could be on your person. That could be in your glove compartment. That could be in your back seat. Doesn't matter. Just like an unopened alcoholic beverage, you buy it from the store. You can put that in your back seat. It's not open. Put it on your lap. Well, I wouldn't put it on your lap. Put it on the floorboard of the passenger seat, whatever. And you're legal. Cannabis is the same. Your personal jar has to be in the trunk. You crack the seal of that jar that you just bought in the parking lot. Got to put it in the trunk. You got a little Ziploc baggie. You have an ounce at home. You want to just take a little bit to the concert or whatever. You got to put it in the trunk. So remember, treat cannabis like alcohol when it comes to an open beverage container. It's got to be in the trunk. If you have an SUV, your trunk is your way back. So think of it like that. When it comes to driving, not a good idea to drive when you indulge in cannabis, just like it's not a good idea to drive when you indulge in alcohol. It is technically not illegal to drive after drinking alcohol. What's illegal is to drive with a 0.08 BAC or above, or to drive with a lower BAC than that, but you cannot drive the same as a sober driver. There's a little bit more, but that's essentially it. The same would kind of go with cannabis. It is technically not illegal by itself to drive with cannabis in your system. It is illegal to be under the influence of cannabis and not perform a motor vehicle like a sober driver would. So with that said, not a good idea with any cannabis. I'm not going to advocate that, hey, go drive. Sounds great. That's not what I'm advocating. What I'm letting you know is the first 30 minutes so far on the science is the indication of the time of your most impairment. That's when you're most impaired according to the recent science. Within the first 30 minutes, tolerance is a factor. If you're a newbie, you're going to be a hell of a lot more impaired than somebody been there, done that, and frequently uses. Even same quantity, same strain, same potency. Could have different intoxicating levels. Like I said, best practice, enjoy your cannabis at home, at the concert, at your friend's place, anywhere else you can legally engage in it. Not a good idea when you're driving. Searches, remember, you have a Fourth Amendment right to be free from search and seizure. That is a very important right. You get pulled over in a car, the officer must have reasonable cause or probable cause, reasonable suspicion or probable cause to pull you over. Probable cause, they see the crime happen. I know it happened. I saw it happen. I can pull you over. Reasonable suspicion, there are facts that indicate to me that there is a crime that has been committed, but I'm not 100%, but the facts look like it might be. I saw a cell phone. I saw a brick that looked like a brick, might be a cell phone. I found out later it was a brick in somebody's hand while they were driving. Yeah. But the fact that I saw something that looks rectangular shape in their hand, I wasn't sure it was a phone, but it gave me reasonable suspicion to pull them over and find out if it was a phone. Both of those give the officers a legal reason to stop you, to seize you. But one thing to always remember, you have less privacy rights in your car than you do in your house. Anything in plain view, you see a bag of cocaine right on the dashboard, that's free game. Doesn't matter if you inadvertently left it there. Oh, I didn't mean to leave it there. Well, so what? They saw it. You're now going to be charged with cocaine possession and whatever. So plain view is always open up for game. And never waive your right to the Fourth Amendment, no matter what is said. Can I search your car? No, please, thank you. No, not going to allow it. You're always polite. You're always respectful, no matter what you receive back, because it doesn't get you anywhere to be the opposite, even if they are. And if you get put in a situation, what do you have to hide or anything like that? You don't need to answer those kinds of questions. You could just simply say, I don't want you searching my car. It's as simple as that. And use the truth to your advantage. What are you doing? Are you going to work? I got to get to work. I don't have time. That's going to be true. You going to the store? I got to get to the store. I got stuff to do. You use what you're doing because there's never a reason to lie. You just use the truth to your advantage. With that said, last thing I'll say, remember California, specifically, you can have 6 plants in your home as long as they can't be seen from outside and not in your front yard. You can have 6 plants. No county, city can do anything to you. If you're a medical user and you have permission, you can have 6 mature plants and 12 immature plants in your house, as long as it can't be seen from the outside and it's not in your front yard. And that is essential. And on the top of that, if you have medical, you actually could get more than that, but you would have to get some kind of a, something from the doctor saying you should get more. Stay legal.
Well, that's all the time we have today. We appreciate you spending yours with us. If you're in the Southern California area and are in need of a criminal defense attorney, Michael Reed of Cannabis Legal Help can be reached at cannabislegalhelp@gmail.com. You may follow Talk Tonic Los Angeles on all social media platforms at Talk Tonic Los Angeles. Join us next time for another episode of ReedWeed Law here on Talk Tonic Los Angeles. Michael, it's been a pleasure, and catch up with you next week.
Always.
Take care. Bye-bye.